Hello, Abigail here with the astrology and tarot reading for this full moon in Libra. This full moon in Libra is on Saturday, the 12th of April, and it is our first eclipse free full moon. There's a lot of really beautiful, magical, and really wonderful astrological stuff happening. Is it going to feel easy? Maybe not, but it does really feel like a lot of good things are coming out of this lunation. A lot of kind of recognition of what has been and what will be, and a really nice flow that I don't think we felt, especially as the ruler of this lunation goes direct 40 minutes after we hit that kind of exaction of this full moon. So Venus stations direct while this full moon is in its kind of full glory, if you will. And it adds this really beautiful, benefic moment, especially since Venus is in its exaltation in Pisces. So um, it just feels like a really special moment, especially in the midst of the retrogrades. We're finally out of the Mercury retrograde. We're still in the post shadow period of the Mars retrograde. Also, just realized I don't usually record at this hour. So my Korean makeup is very glowy. I almost look a little plasticky, actually. Anyways, sorry. ADHD, I got sidetracked. I also have a fun little shadow, but I will enjoy the sun and not get distracted by my face shining. Anywho, so it's a really beautiful and stunning kind of moment where we get a Venusian full moon that really packs a punch. Another reason for that is the sun is conjunct Chiron in Aries. So when I say this is a lot of good stuff, I don't mean that it's not going to contain difficulties, but these are all things that are going to be helping us moving forward. It's a very progressive feeling, which I don't think a lot of us have been able to enjoy very much due to the retrogrades, even if you haven't been completely sideswiped by them. You know, all of us have been feeling kind of the regression of that retrograde motion. So stuff just not moving forward quickly. So this is a moment where I feel it is definitely a turning point. Also, we are out of that eclipse period. So we're out of the post shadow of the eclipses. We're kind of moving towards smoother waters. The summer is definitely going to be a better time for getting things done and doing things versus the earlier part of this year. Another thing that's important is Venus is stationing direct very close to Saturn within what I would consider an orb to in orb to the North Node and Mercury and Pisces. So pretty much everybody's involved. Also, excuse me, I know this is chaotic, but something in my eye. Mars is also square this lunation. So there's a lot of information about the Mars retrograde. I do think this is more of a, coming to terms with what happened moment. Sorry, really got in there. Versus uh versus, having to relearn and redo stuff. It is just kind of seeing. I think there's standing, if you think about a square, so you have the two opposite opposing points. So this is a T square. You have the two opposing forces, which would be the sun and the moon in Libra, and then you have Mars kind of creating that T square. So it does give perspective, and I do think there's an opportunity for a beautiful moment of perspective. And yeah, squares are difficult, but you don't get traction without squares. Um, Trines are nice; they're a flow of energy, but you don't really get stuff going in a trine. Stuff is already going. So this is an opportunity to get a bit of traction moving through the retrogrades. Now, obviously, when a planet stations, it can be a little sticky, especially since it'll take a second for Venus to go fully direct and start progressing through the post shadow period. But it does feel that in the moment of this full moon, there is a release. There is kind of a sigh of relief as we kind of head out of what was a really, really intense first quarter of the year. Um, no, yeah, first quarter going into like a quasi third. Um, so I really encourage anyone who's watching to really enjoy and engage with this full moon, to release anything that you felt has been really burdening you. If you haven't kind of been able to, let go of something during this cycle, this is the time to release it, or to at least peel one finger off if we're not quite there yet. Also, what I think is really cool is almost all the planets are directly involved. While Pisces is next to Aries and in conjunct Libra, Venus is still directly ruling this moon, and then that pulls in the North Node, it pulls in Saturn, it pulls in, Mercury, and creates a connection to this moon. And while Pluto and Neptune are not directly involved, they are sextile. So all the planets are kind of doing a dance with a specific celestial body or multiple celestial bodies and places. And I think it is going to create a really powerful, beautiful magic for us in this moment, especially those of us who have felt really drained and exhausted. Now, I don't think it's time to make yourself do a lot of things, especially if you're drained and exhausted, but it is time to let go of any burdens that you are carrying, to let Venus kind of take the lead. um, it's also probably a really good moon to cry if you need to cry, if you haven't been crying already, or to continue crying, speaking for myself. So it does feel really powerful. It's really beautiful. I do like that it's on a Saturday, which means that, if you do work kind of a week and then have weekends free, hopefully you'll have some time to yourself to really kind of sit in this energy. Um, a lot is going to continue to happen in 2026, but it does feel like this is kind of a turning point, and a shift in a different direction that we've kind of been being angled towards through all of the other planetary actions and involvements. We do still have the ingress of Saturn into, I don't remember the exact day, 25th of May, I believe. The ingress of Saturn into Aries. Jupiter's going to go into Cancer. I want to say sometime in June. Yeah, sometime in June. I can't remember the date exactly. And then Uranus goes into Neptune on 7/7. So there's a lot. Uranus goes into Neptune. Tragic. Uranus goes into Gemini. Um, so there's just a lot going on this year, and it does feel as though, especially the first part of the year was really heavy, had a lot of kind of releasing. There's a wide range of experiences per usual. I don't know if you hear that. It's my dog, Reggie. What are you doing, baby? He's upset because he doesn't like it when I record, so he is currently under the bed, scratching the floor to fluff up his bed. I'm pretty for sure because he wants to show me how devastated he is, that he doesn't feel comfortable sleeping on his pile of cushions. So now he's a destitute child on the floor. Um, so this is just a special. Getting back to what we're talking about, this is just a really special moment. I think it's a moment to really engage with your own personal birth chart to check where everything is. Also, that Sun conjunction to Chiron that I mentioned early on is going to bring up and highlight pains and hurts. I also think it's going to be the push that some of us need to really stand up for ourselves, to really say, you know what, it's not okay that this person keeps stepping on this place. And instead of lashing out or going into a trauma response, I'm going to preempt it and be like, here are my boundaries. You can't do that. No, thank you. And I think that's going to free all of us up, whatever little thing we've been holding on that is in that kind of constant pain place. Not that we can get rid of the pain or remove the wound, but we can set boundaries around it. We can find ways to, tend to it and take care of it. Um, so, if you want anything to do during this full moon in Libra, I would say tend to yourself, tend to your needs, your desires, tend to your personal relationships, tend to the places where you have been neglected recently. Don't force yourself to do anything, but do the things that you know are going to fill you up. Something I did recently, due to personal circumstances, my apartment was a wreck. And it wasn't like a normal wreck, it was a much bigger wreck. And this past weekend, I got it cleaned up with the help of my partner. So, and it's been a huge relief. And it doesn't have to be cleaning. But cleaning is a pain spot for me, which is why I bring it up. My parents really bullied me about that growing up. But whatever that pain spot is, go take care of it. Not to shame or to force or to kind of prove yourself, but simply to make it easier to breathe. Simply to make that pain spot feel more at home and more able to rest. Um, and it's also there is possibility for pain in this, because if we have yet to recognize where people have failed us, if we have yet to recognize where our values and boundaries have been, overstepped or underappreciated or whatever, this full moon is definitely going to be that point where we go, yeah, that's not really good for me. It doesn't mean that whatever is causing that needs to go bye bye, but it does mean that you need to have a conversation. You need to shift the dynamic so that you are more able to fully enjoy and function in this life, which is the goal of using astrology, for me at least. That and finding a deeper and more vibrant connection to the unknown and the unseen. So that's my advice as far as astrology goes. If you have any questions, you can always pop them in the comments. I always post this like a day or two before. So, and you can ask me questions afterwards, but I'm going to shuffle the cards. All right, we're back. Um, so I pulled an oracle card from the Lost Oracle. Yes, which I really do like. It's my newest oracle deck. I like these for kind of like topics. But this one is called The Hearth, Broaden Your Horizons, which I find interesting because technically, if we're broadening our horizons, maybe the hearth isn't the place to go. But maybe we're considering and reconsidering what home means to us. And also a reminder that hearths need to be tended to, homes need to be tended to. Whatever you have as a home in this moment, maybe it needs some care. Maybe this is an internal home that you have, maybe it's a physical home, but kind of like I talked about tidying up spaces and things like that. I need to get back on lighting my candle for my house spirits. I have been kind of at odds and ends recently. Um, but to really consider what your hearth is and what you want to tend. This also really reminds me of Vesta, the asteroid goddess, which is the Roman name for Hestia, which was the goddess who ruled the hearth and worship and adoration and spiritual practice and things like that. So maybe check where Vesta is in your chart. Most most astrology calculator doohickeys um, will have a way to put that asteroid on your chart. But yeah, it is. I think it's also important with a Venusian moment with the retrogrades to really ask yourself what home means to you, and if you are currently at home or if you need to find a safer home. And is home comfort? Is home safety? Where does home kind of land for you when it comes to your personal needs, desires, wants, etc. Um, and also, if you don't feel like you have that space to kind of create a moment where you can envisage that for yourself. And I know because this doesn't work for me either, that typical manifestation doesn't work for me, but manifesting those feelings, manifesting those desires, kind of letting them exist in the cosmos if they don't already exist, or just manifesting more for yourself if you do have something like this, I think is a really good thing to do in this moment. And also maybe something to release in this moment, not to forget, not to forgive, but the ways in which people have violated your hearth, the ways in which people have taken advantage of the safety that you create for others. Maybe that is something to release, not to not hold them accountable, but to release in the sense of like you get to do what you want to do now. And those people who did those things don't have a say. The next cards we get, I do like these. It's interesting. We're getting some eights in here. So the Eight of Pentacles. I don't think anything that's coming up in this full moon is new. This is all retrograde topics. Eight of Pentacles is about working on and honing and fine tuning things that are already in the work. So if something's new is popping up, ask yourself if it's actually new. um, and it probably isn't. And then secondly, you don't need to find any new skills or new understandings to deal with this. You already have the tools. You just need to pick the tools that you need to work on this. And maybe this is something you can meditate on or consider within the next 2 weeks between now and the new moon in Taurus, which I'm excited for. And then we have the Eight of Cups, which does remind me of what I said earlier about maybe having to let some stuff go. This is definitely the card of release, the card of walking away. Maybe there's something you need to walk away from. Maybe there's something you need to release that you haven't, that has been a topic of these recent retrogrades, and because of the way they've kind of stacked up, they're all kind of, beginnings and endings are all quite blurred. um, and release and moving on doesn't always have to be a completely clean slate. It's just the ability to not always live in the past and live in the ways in which maybe you've tried so hard to kind of move forward. And I'm not saying that this is about abandoning self. This is about moving to a place where you can find yourself. And maybe in this moment, you've had to kind of process and work through the places in which you have abandoned self. And now we're kind of turning it around and we're walking away from the things that have caused us to abandon parts of ourselves, or at the very least going to a place where we can reclaim them within the conditions that we are currently existing under. And then I really love these two cards, very special. We have the Fool, and it does very much feel, like I said before, that this is the turning point of the year. This also is, to me, very much Uranus moving into Gemini later this year. There's so many new and beautiful things on the horizon, and I think this full moon is very much that moment where we start to progress towards those things. The Fool takes a lot of trust, and it takes a lot of belief in your intuition and your ability to move forward. So I assure you that you have everything you need to make the choices you need, even if you don't have all the information you need. And this is the time to do the thing that is going to work best for you. I have a lot of people, especially in tarot readings, who are like, should I or should not I do this thing? Like, move away from something that has been harming me or that just isn't working for me. And the truth is it's always yes. I mean, obviously, we want to do timing that keeps us safe and cared for, but if something is destroying your ability to survive, you need to walk away. So, is there anything in this moment that, while it might provide a certain measure of stability in the sense of having a form of income or having some kind of stability in like relation to someone else, but is it worth the burnout? Is it worth the trauma? Is it worth you being so ground to the bone that you don't have the energy to dream of something better? And if you don't, maybe losing that thing will give you that energy that you need to find that better thing, rather than just staying constantly kind of beholden to this thing or this energy that is actively harming you. And it doesn't have to be like intentional. It can just be a job that doesn't suit you. It can just be a schedule that is too overbearing, so release. It's hard to let those things go, but what is the value of that thing if one day it makes you unable to function? And I ask that as an autistic person, where that's very real for me. Like, if I push myself too far, I will literally not be able to do the things I need to do. So I've had to let things that from the outside seem really wild go because I knew that it would eventually quite literally kill me. And then, speaking of which, we have death. This is a huge turnover. The whole process, starting back with that Mars retrograde beginning in December of last year, has really been about death and release and moving through energy. And I think, death isn't ending, and I don't want to like move so far away from death, move so quickly into rebirth that we forget death, because every ending is a beginning and vice versa. And also with physics, like energy cannot be created or destroyed. So death is a constant cycle of renewal. But maybe there is something that really needs to end for you. Maybe you're currently grieving some form of death. Maybe it is a literal death. Eclipses, I know, can bring a lot of sudden endings to things, and we're still coming out of that in this full moon. We're like right on the tail end. But where can you release? Where can you find peace in death? Where can you honor endings in a way that is respectful to the energy that you've put into whatever is ending? Um, we don't have to be happy. We don't have to be sad about something. We can feel however we want to feel. But I do think there's a lot of value in respecting death and the ritual that goes into when something ends. Doesn't have anything big. It can just be burning a candle. It can be lighting something on fire and then flushing it down the toilet. It can literally just be a mental release of something, but maybe during this full moon, we can honor death a little bit, honor the things that have passed on. And as we all know, not everything that is passed on is unvaluable. Usually it is very precious. And then last but not least, we're still in kind of a retrograde position with Venus because we have the Hanged One. So I do think there's gonna be a lot of release around this full moon, and that station direct is a really beautiful symbol and moment for us. It's still stationing direct. So don't expect to be able to all of a sudden do things. Like I said, this is more about tending to self and tending with the kind of hearth, that card, tending to parts of self that are necessary for our sustainability and really pouring back into ourselves this full moon. It's not really about going out and getting something done. It is about release. It's about letting things go. Um, and once again, I never let things go. So I'm not talking about forgiving and forgetting or not caring about something. I'm just saying maybe don't carry it all the time. Um, and with this hanged one, I think what's important is not always, but in a lot of card, there is a sense of peace in the hanged one. This is suspension with consent. Join with the universe in this suspension of self and allowing yourself to heal and allowing yourself to experience what you need to experience in order for you to refill your cup, in order for you to kind of come through this energy on the other side. And when go time is go time, you're going to know. Don't worry, you're not going to miss the kickoff. And I don't always do this. I'm going to draw another card that I think is important. We do have the sun here. And I really think this full moon is about coming home to self. It's a Venus full moon. And while it is definitely about other people, it's about us in the context of other people. So, who are you and what do you need in this full moon in Libra? And that is my reading slash breakdown for this moment. If you have any questions, please ask them. I love to answer them. If you have any personal stories or anything, I also love to hear them. Please like and subscribe if you find that any of this resonates. Makes my day. And I will see you all in a different space and time.